Too much, too much of pressure now, Rakhi, being live streamed.
No, I think it's a session that we have all been looking forward to.
Do you do
And
this often? Like, can you give me a quick background while we
sure,
wait for
sure,
people
sure.
to
I mean,
join in?
I'm gonna share this with all our participants, and let me see my chat. Uh, yeah. Okay. Yes, thank you, Pramila ma'am, for answering. For those of you who are here for the first time, if you can write me in the comment section, if you're here for the first time, attending first session of TST, you can write me in the comment section. And we are definitely going to be sharing about what the session today is all about and who we are. Hi, Aarti. Okay, you've shared that somehow women, especially teachers, seem to be always on the backseat when it comes to financial planning. Wish to encourage my team to be serious and consistent. Wow, that's lovely. Great, great. So anyone who's joining us for the first time, well, Teachers Help Teachers is one of the largest communities of educators across India. And the main aim of Teachers Help Teachers is to help one another and empower teachers to lead a better life and be better teachers, because after all, we are looking at becoming a better version of ourselves, right? Aren't we? So while we focus a lot on professional development of teachers, we also have realized that there are certain topics, and especially finance, when it comes to finance, that we always take a backseat, as rightly mentioned in the chat, that we as teachers take a backseat when it comes to managing our own money. Probably because we get too caught up with too many responsibilities and too many roles that we play, or maybe because we feel that money management is something that our husbands or the family is better at, so let's just park it to them and not break our heads with that. So probably these could be some of the reasons that we have got. But however, in today's world, in today's time, when we're looking at being role models, we're looking at helping our learners prepare for the future, we ourselves need to be doing that first, right? So in order to do that, today's session is all about building awareness about where you are in terms of managing your own money. Simple things like budgeting. How do you do your budgeting? Do you use an app? Or what is it system that you're putting, what system are you putting into use to be able to understand where exactly you're spending your money on, and what exactly you're saving on, and what are the kind of what is the money that's going out for tax and all that. So I remember that when I started my journey as an educator, I was earning a salary of I started with a salary of 8,000 rupees, and at that point in time, 8,000 rupees in 2000 was something I was really proud of, because that made me feel that okay, I no longer need to ask money from my parents, and I can support myself. But little did I realize that when I started handling my own finance, I realized that my saving bucket was something which was always empty. And that, the early experiences made me understand that, okay, to have a system to have my savings in place, I need to have a system in place, and I need to be aware of what I can do to even multiply my savings. So that's how my journey started. And of course, I'm going to let Nitin do all the talking now. But before we introduce Nitin, I would like to ask all our members who are watching us live, who are in the Zoom meet, what brings you here? Are you comfortable managing your own money? Type yes if you're comfortable managing your own money, or no if you're not comfortable managing your own money. A simple question. Let's get the answers rolling. So are you comfortable managing your money? Are you aware of the possibilities of how you can grow money? Okay, thank you for being honest. Yes, but would like to know more. Yes, what about the others? Are you all comfortable? Yes, no, yes, that's lovely, Fatima. Thank you. Yes, mostly still learning. Wonderful, wonderful. Nice to see the responses coming in. Daisy, thank you, Daisy, for answering. So this brings us to our speaker today. I'll take just a minute to introduce him. So Nitin has completed his master's in investment management. He started his career in 2014 with a boutique wealth management firm in Bangalore as a part of the research desk. He then went on to co-found a company focused on providing financial wellness solutions for corporate employees and has conducted over 200 personal finance sessions across the country. Wow, that's huge. In 2020, he shifted careers and joined the world of business journalism at The Ken. He is currently a senior editor for the daily newsletter at FinShots. We welcome you, Nitin, and over to you. We have the answers in the chat box, and yes, we can.
Thanks so much, Rakhi, and thanks so much for the introduction as well. You've taken away part of my job, but I'm going to share the screen. Let's get that. Oh, I should have checked this earlier. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Rakhi, if you can fix that for me, please. Perfect. So I'm going to share the screen, and please let me know once it's visible. Can you all see the screen, the slide right, talking about the emotionally intelligent investor?
Yes.
Perfect. So we will begin. I still see people coming into the session. I see the option for me to admit them as well. So wherever I see the option, Rakhi, I'm just going to admit it if it comes up on the screen. But thank you everyone for coming in on a Thursday evening at 6 p.m. I'm assuming everyone's back to the classroom. No one's doing remote sessions. So I'm sure most of you have had a hard day's work, and now you're sitting in front after lecturing people. You're now sitting in front of someone else who's going to be lecturing you for an hour on money management. But please don't think of this as a lecture. As much as I'd like to keep it interactive, unfortunately, we are limited by the screen. So we'll make do with what we have got, which is the chat box, right? So if you've got questions in between, feel free to pop it in. And we leave around 10 minutes at the end for answering questions, right? So, but if you populate it through the session, as soon as something strikes your mind, I'll be happy to scroll up and kind of look at it, right? So first of all, I do want to thank you all for being teachers. I know it's a hard job, and it may not every day may not feel like you're in the noble profession, but trust me, you all are making a difference. So thank you for doing that in the first place. Right, and with that, let's get into the meat of the session, right? When I was trying to join the Zoom meeting, I saw the description that I'm assuming Rakhi must have put there, right? And Rakhi, the description said, "The future belongs to those who work smarter and not harder." Now we have all heard that before. Do you all agree with it? I mean, you can put in your yes or no. I'm not sure if I look at the chat, but you can put in your yes or no in the chat box. Maybe it'll get some conversation going. But what I found very interesting about that is, as someone in the wealth management industry or a financial planner in my past life, right? I don't do that anymore because I handle a daily newsletter now. But one thing that we always say is make your money work hard for you, right? All of us can be smart. We can work smarter. But the one person in the room that has to work really hard for us remains our money, right? And that's what we're going to try and talk about today, right? You know this. This is a slide that was there as an introduction, but I don't need to spend too much of time. But a quick intro about FinShots as well. We are a 3-year-old business newsletter, and just like how we are trying to simplify the world of personal finance today, all that we do essentially is every day we look at the news, we look at what's going on in the world, more specifically India, and we say, okay, what's happening in the world of economics, policy, business, finance, tech. And we say, how can we simplify this for our 800,000 readers? And we distill whatever news is out there into a quick 5-minute read. We de-jargonize it, and we say, listen, these are the most important things that you need to know. But we also don't do it in the boring reporting newspaper kind of way, right? We want people to understand the story, so we make a story out of it. Hopefully, I'll be able to try and bring that same bit of storytelling to our session, right? Because let's face it, talking about money on a Thursday evening is quite boring, right? No one wants to talk about numbers and maths on a Thursday evening, especially with the weekend coming up. So we're going to try and make it in sort of a story format. And like I said, if you have any questions in between, feel free to slide it in, right? So why do I say emotionally intelligent investor? Why not just intelligent investor? I don't know how many of you have heard of this book, but if you ask people for recommendations and you ask, hey, how can I learn about the world of investing? Most probably this is the first book recommendation that you get, The Intelligent Investor. It was written back in the 1930s, but it's as relevant today as it used to be back in the day. But this is what the recommendation that you get, right? The Intelligent Investor book. But we're not going to be talking solely about investing today, right? We're going to be talking about personal finance. So here's the first bit of truth about personal finance. So for all of you who might feel slightly intimidated by the world of finance and numbers, this is one of my favorite quotes. He's a fund manager from the US, retired. I'm not sure if he's still alive. I need to check that. But anyway, this is one of the favorite quotes from Peter Lynch. All the math that you need to succeed in the stock market, basically, you learn by the time you're in fourth grade. So Raki did say that I did my master's in investment management, and I did, and I went to London for that. Do I really use my master's in managing my money? Not really. So sure, personal finance is about numbers, and I will share a spreadsheet with you as well, right? So we make it seem as if this is like a legit session. And what's personal finance session without a spreadsheet? So we're going to do that. But I'll be honest with you and say that personal finance is a bit more about the personal bit than the finance bit, right? That's what we have to pay attention to, because each one of us is different and I'll explain that as well, and I'll give you homework to do, right? You're all teachers, you can go home and sit at home and do the homework, but it's a bit more about the feelings and your own association with money than what anyone else tells you, right? So we'll start with the story, like I said, right? We have to make things a little bit more interesting and not just talk about money. I'm not sure how many of you have read this book called Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. If you have, this story should ring a bell. If you haven't, this is an entirely new story for you, right? So this is a story about two people, Ronald Read and Richard Perskov. Ronald Read, a humble janitor in the US. He worked for a couple of decades sweeping floors at a retail outlet. He worked at a gas station fixing cars. And he did this for around 2 decades and more of his life. At the age of 38, he bought a home, right? Because everyone has a goal of buying a home. So he bought a home. And he lived in that till the time he died, right? Very normal life, normal blue-collar life. He got married, wife died when he was 50. Nothing too exceptional about his life, right? Until he died in 2014. What was so special that a humble janitor in the US made the news when he died in 2014? When he died, he donated $6 million to charity. He'd amassed a wealth of $8 million, out of which $6 million went to charity and $2 million went to his stepkids. Again, humble janitor, no background in finance. I think he was the first person in his family even to graduate. And that is the wealth that he amassed. Then we have Richard Perskov, right? Now, he wasn't born in the 1920s or 30s, but slightly newer breed of people. High flying, Ivy League educated, MBA, worked as a banker, 40 under 40, all those achievements, right? You know, that's what you want to see. Now, this person, he lived a fairly luxurious life. He had the money, he was able to spend the money. He owned an 18,000 square foot home, which cost $90,000 a month to maintain. He had the money, so why not just do it, right? Remember, Ivy League educated banker as well. So I'm assuming he knew something to do with money, right? I mean, he can't have been a fool. But then 2008 came along, right? And I'm sure everyone remembers what happened in 2008, right? The subprime mortgage crisis. Housing prices in the US crashed. What happened to Richard Perskov? He declared bankruptcy. All his wealth was tied up in homes, and he'd taken on a lot of loans and debt in order to fund and finance his lifestyle. Basically, the recession struck and he was left with practically nothing. So, chat box, for you now. What's the moral of the story? Teachers love this, right? What's the takeaway from the story? What's the moral of the story? That's when we were much younger, but you get the truth, right? What's the takeaway from this story that I just told you? I'll give you 30 seconds. Feel free to put it into the chat box and I'll take a look at it as well. Let's see if you're able to connect some bits of the things that I've said in, slightly earlier to this. Quick moral of the myth. I can see some people typing, but I don't see any messages coming through yet. So I'm going to wait for another 10, 20 seconds. Okay. Personal attitude, habits, and mindset. All right. Perfectly fair. You could say, so since we have 1 hour, I'll get along with it rather than spend too much time on this, but feel free to put your answers in as and when you feel like. But sure, that's a takeaway, right? Don't be greedy. Like I said, Perskone took on a lot of debt, got himself into a mess. But there is actually another message here as well, right? Remember how I said I also went and did a master's in investment management and all that, but I don't really use it. Now, the wonderful thing about the world of investment and money is that you really don't need to have a money-making rocket science degree in order to do well in the market. You don't need that in order to make money. Now, you can't expect a Ronald Reed, someone who doesn't have an educational background, to be a coder and fix bugs in an engineering program, set up a bridge that can connect one part of town to another part, conduct open heart surgery, none of this, right? For all that, you need that expertise. But to manage money, very honestly, you don't really need that much of an expertise, right? So with that, let us get into the bits and pieces. I'm going to close the chat box now and basically tell you, at the end of the day, the trick is all about controlling your emotions, right? I think Raki mentioned this in the chat as well, right? This is all you basically have to do. But we know that managing emotions is easier said than done, right? Nitin can sit here and say, teachers, please do this, right? But we have to go and put it into practice. And we can't sit still, right? This is what we do, right? We are forever moving and we are bombarded by everything. And this is actually, if any of you are football fans and you watch the down and had a conversation, right? And none of us find time to really introspect. We are constantly in this race of kind of figuring it out in like, okay, there's work the next day. What do I have planned? What's my teaching plan for the next day? What do I have to write for me personally? What do I have to write the next day? We're constantly caught in that mindset. We really don't take too much of time to sit and introspect and think to ourselves about a lot of things, right? And money is usually the last thing in our mind. We don't want to take that extra effort. So this is the homework that I'm going to give you. I want you to really think about your relationship with money. And I'll tell you why this matters a lot as well. I'm going to put the 7 questions slowly on screen so that you can think about it now and then go back, take a piece of pen and paper and actually write this down. Trust me, if you're just going to be thinking about it, it's all intangible. It's there in your mind. The moment we, get on to our next task in life, we'll forget all about it. But if you sit down and pen these things down and put it on a piece of paper, you can always revisit it, do this exercise every year and see how your relationship with money has also changed. Because trust me, your relationship with money changes as you get older, right? And I have experienced that myself. Before I entered the wealth management industry, growing up, son of a banker, money was never the topic of dinner table conversations, right? Even if money was, I don't know if money was tight or anything in the household, but our parents never let us feel that way. I also used to earn my pocket money. I didn't just get it simply. Now, by earn, I do have to put one caveat. If I didn't fight with my elder brother, I used to get a bit of pocket money. And if I did some chores around the house, I used to get some pocket money as well. And I used to place bets with my dad on certain things like sports and make some extra money because I would only place bets on things that I was 100% sure I would win. So that's how I made my pocket money. But earning that pocket money made me also realize the value of that money that I have. And I actually started my money management career when I was in school. So I didn't invest my money because I grew up in the Middle East. There was no really options for me to invest money. But my friends saw how careful I was with money, and a couple of them actually used to give their pocket money to me to manage. So I had it, and only when we used to go out, I used to take a bit of their pocket money and say, hey, you can spend this much, right? So I used to be their parent when we used to go out. So that was my relationship with money as a child, right? But then I entered the wealth management industry. I started managing money for people who had crores of money just lying around. I could see their relationship with money. I could sense their goals in life. I was also managing money for people who had just 1,000 rupees to invest every month, right? So the complete spectrum. So managing money for them also affected how I thought about money. Then there was my girlfriend's family, who's now my wife. She was also the daughter of a banker, a public sector banker in India. But her relationship with money was extremely different. They grew up having conversations about money at the dinner table. So today, even though I'm really prudent with my money, my wife actually wants to spend money now that she's grown up because she didn't really have that environment when she was a kid. Why does this matter? Because I don't know, again, the demographics, but I'm assuming there's some young teachers and everyone over here as well. Money conversations can be a bit of a burden in your household, right? Because if two people have completely different relationships and values with money, how do you essentially reconcile that, right? Doing this exercise together can actually help you understand what it is that both of you truly want, right? And what it is that has driven you to these situations, right? Again, these are the 7 questions. I'm going to put it out there. Forgive me, there's a question mark missing in the final 7th question, but these are the 7 questions. We'll see if we can share this parts of this presentation also with you folks so that it makes your life easier. But some of these things really do make a big impact when it comes to where you invest your money and how you invest your money. Are you a big risk taker when it comes to money? Or do you prefer to sit on the sidelines and watch everyone else do it and think, oh, is this the right time? Oh, should I do it now? Oh, what happens if I lose money by investing in the stock markets? These questions can give you some semblance of an idea when it comes to your relationship with money, right? And once we sort this bit out, right? I know Raki talked about budgeting, all right? And we'll try and I've actually removed the slide in this Raki because we have a bunch of other slides. But what I'll do is this: I will still talk about budgeting. All right, let me try and talk about that. So there's not going to be a slide in front of you to look at, but I'm just going to talk about budgeting, right? And if I go back to the slide, I think there's a question also. Have you tried your hand at budgeting before? I think there's a 5th question. If you haven't failed, why do you think that's happened, right? I'm assuming that most of us in life have tried budgeting, and at some point we have failed, right? Because it is hard, right? I mean, come on, opening up an Excel file, inputting your daily expenses. My wife and I, we used to do this when we were in college, by the way, because we used to get limited pocket money. We used to budget even in college, like 10 rupees for samosas, stuff like that, right? It's hard, right? But also sometimes budgeting can give you the feeling that you are restricting yourself, right? Because you're looking at each and every line item. You're like, I spent 1,000 rupees on coffee this month. I went to Starbucks 3 times this month. Why on earth am I spending so much, right? And the moment you start feeling restricted in your budgeting is when you kind of say, this is absolute bullshit. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to throw the budget into the dustbin and just going to live my life. They've all been there. They've done that, right? So what is the alternative? Okay. First thing, I'll talk about the alternative very quickly, but I still want you to do this budgeting exercise. And the reason is very simple, all right? It's something to do with what I like to call personal inflation. So you all know that the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, puts out this inflation number every month, right? They say, hey, inflation in the country is 7%, 8%. This is how much prices are going up year on year, stuff like that. And you're like, oh, which means I'm spending 8% more every year compared to I'm spending 8% more this year compared to the previous year, right? That's the natural assumption. But if you put your expenses down on a spreadsheet and you know exactly where you're spending your money, you'll be able to calculate your personal inflation. And this could be something extremely different because what the RBI tells you is just an average of what India is basically doing, right? They have weightages also saying 40% to food, 30% to fuel, things like that. But what if you're someone who eats out more often? And what if wage costs are going up? How is that translating into your expenses? Right. I calculated my personal inflation recently and I found it was around 12%. RBI is telling me 7.5%. My personal inflation is 12%. If my company gives me a hike of 10%, I'm not beating inflation. Right. So at least knowing my personal inflation will give me a bit of leverage to go and talk to my company the next time the appraisal cycle rolls around. Right. So as hard as it is, just try putting it down on a spreadsheet. We do have a spreadsheet. We'll share that with you as well. And we are trying to be as comprehensive in that spreadsheet as possible. Now, let's say now you're like, Nitin, this is very hard. I don't want to deal with it. What is the alternative? Sure, I'll give you two alternatives. One alternative is the percentage method. The percentage method is nothing but, so there is this American philosophy which says the 50-30-20 rule. Okay. Sorry, I don't have the slides in here, but I'm going to try and explain it, right? So think of it like a pyramid. 50% goes to your needs, right? Your rent, your food, stuff like that. 30% goes to your things that you want to enjoy and do, like going out for a meal, things like that. And 20% is for your future, saving it for the future, right? Now, what I love about the percentage method is that, sure, the US has said 50-30-20 and all of that, right? But the beauty of the percentage method is you can tailor it to what you want. So let's say Rakhi comes and says, Nitin, I want to save 30% of my income. Sure, just tweak the percentage method and say, okay, I'm going to spend only 40% of my necessities. I'm going to save 30%, and then maybe 30% on my wants and going out for a nice meal, stuff like that, right? So that's the beauty of the percentage method, right? Forget so if you Google percentage method and you see this 50-30-20 rule, forget it. You design your own rule. It's very simple. But how do you ensure that you stick to that? Well, again, if you say that, okay, I'm going to save 30% of my income, simple hack, set up a separate bank account. Do not have a debit card associated with it, nothing. Moment you get your salary, take that 30%, transfer it to the other bank account. You can set up your investments and everything from that bank account. Out of sight, out of mind. Very simple, right? So that's the simplest hack that I can recommend. And I do that. I have a separate digital with a neobank. I have an account. I do have a debit card associated with it, but it's locked away in the drawer. The debit card is for emergencies, right? But you just need to have that discipline, the emotion, right? Or fine, you don't want to do the percentage method. What else can you do? So here's something that I prefer, right? Because I don't want to see. So if you actually Google coffee drinking millionaire, you'll see the most common article is that how your expensive coffee habit is preventing you from becoming a millionaire. So in the US, everyone drinks Starbucks. So they say, okay, this is, let's say, $4 for a Starbucks every day. What if you save that money and you invested it? In 30 years, you would be a millionaire, right? But you're taking away the joy from life, right? There's a reason why you want that coffee. Financial planners will tell you define your needs and define your wants. Having a Starbucks coffee is not a need, it's a want. But who's a financial planner to tell you what your need and what your want is? You have to decide what your need and want is. What is that coffee habit actually signifying? Is it just a break from your everyday life? Maybe it's something that you actually need, right? And that's perfectly fine. And if you watch that Shark Tank thing, the show, there's Kevin O'Leary, right? One of the panelists in the US edition. Even he harps on about saying that I never drink coffee from outside. I make my own coffee and things like that. So it's a little painful, right? Then when you go out and you spend money, 400 rupees on a Frappuccino, you're like, oh shit, I just spent so much money on a coffee, right? So there is the net worth method. Take a helicopter view. Take all the assets that you have, your bank account, your investments, deduct any loans that you have. That's your net worth. Every 6 months, every year, set a target and say, I'm going to grow my net worth by 20% every year or 25% every year. You can include the growth in your investments as well, right? That way, you're not bothered about the little things. Oh, I have 5 subscriptions. I have Disney, I have Netflix. Is there too many subscriptions? Who cares? As long as your net worth is growing, these little things in life stop bothering you. So that's something that I found works for me, because I tried doing the other methods and I'm like, each time I used to go out, I used to feel the pinch, even though it never really hurt me, but I just used to feel the pinch because I had to go back and enter it on a spreadsheet. And then I look at it and tally it, and I'm like, Nitin, you spent 6,000 rupees going out to restaurants this month. Painful. So I just started looking at the net worth method, right? So I hope that gives, even though I don't have the slides, I hope I've been able to convey the nuances of budgeting to some extent, right? So now that we've got budgeting also out of the way, right? Let's go on to the next bit, right? Which is, okay, I've defined my relationship with money. I've now done some bit of budgeting. Now let's get to the goal setting bit, right? Because at the end of the day, that's why we are actually earning money, right? To achieve goals that we have in life. So if you go to a financial planner or a wealth manager, they'll ask you, have you thought about retirement? What goals do you have, right? Sorry, there's some bit of disturbance coming from somewhere, so you can just, yeah. Thank you. So if you go to a wealth manager or financial planner, they'll ask you what goals that you have. And most probably, you will rattle off the same set of goals that everyone has in life. House, car, kids' education, maybe upskilling yourself, which is your own education, vacations, retirement. That's it. We are happy, right? These are the standard goals that we see everywhere. But what if we spend a little bit more time? Actually, like I said, personal finance is also a little bit about introspection, right? So what if we change the perspective, right? Let's frame it slightly differently, and we try and find goals that we have in our lives that maybe we didn't even know existed for us, right? So these are 2 questions for you. Again, homework, you can do it now, completely up to you. 2 short questions. And I'll give you my answers as well. You're living a 9 to 5 today. You want to break out of it. Let's face it, it's boring, right? We want to feel alive. Life's too short to be stuck in that constant rut, right? We want to feel alive and break out of this 9 to 5. What will you do? Think about it, right? And you have to actually be honest with yourself, right? And it requires a bit of thinking. It's a little work, right? Don't just write the first answer that comes into your head. It's usually never the right answer, right? There's no mugging up, right? Then think about your future. If you win the lottery today, what would you do with that money? Let me give you my answers, and I'll tell you how that helped me find my goals. I'd already set my goals, right? I had goals of traveling, stuff like that. All of it was in place. Now you might think, Nitin, this is silly. The first thing I do is build a house if I won the lottery. And I'll tell you why for me it wasn't silly. Because buying a house was never in my agenda. As someone who does a bit of math when it comes to calculation, I'm like, see, it doesn't make sense to buy a house. Houses are too expensive. If you give it out for rent, you don't get enough rental income. Things like that. I won't get into the nuances of it, but I'm like, I'll probably buy a house when I'm 60. I know when I'm going to retire. Maybe I want to retire in the mountains. I'll buy a house in the mountains. Maybe by then I want to retire on the beach. I'll buy a house on the beach. Why struggle to take a loan and build a house? And then the other one, which is break out of the 9 to 5, was essentially go on a holiday with my closest friends. That would really make me feel alive. Now, I already had a travel goal penciled in my goal list. But that travel goal was with my spouse, my partner. Which means that if I really want to, if I'm stuck in a rut at work and 3 months from now I want to take a holiday, I'd prefer to ring up my friends and I'm like, guys, let's go on a holiday. which means now suddenly I have a separate travel goal that I need to plan for. Right? It's not just travel with my spouse, but it's a separate travel goal that I have. And like I said, building a house, I'm like, which means at the back of my head, in my subconscious, I'm like, hey, listen, if I had free money, this is probably something that I would do. And I would probably build a nice house today. Maybe not in the city, maybe still somewhere on the outskirts, but still, a house is a house. Which means now probably I have to start saving up for that as well. Maybe I don't want a house when I'm 60, maybe I want a house when I'm 40. Right? And this got me thinking about new goals that I have, right? And it could be something completely different for you, right? It could be, I don't know, maybe you want to take a break, and if you want to break out of that 9 to 5 and feel alive, maybe you want to do photography on the weekends. You want to be a wildlife photographer on the weekends. And while that might seem like a very simple thing to do, photography equipment could be expensive. Traveling to wildlife parks could be expensive. So that's basically 2 goals in one now. You have to afford the equipment, plus you have to afford the travel for that, right? So find the goals essentially that you have in mind, right? You want to take a sabbatical, tired of being a teacher for a while, you want to take a sabbatical. Maybe that's something that you need, right? So spend some time thinking about the goals that you have, right? And like I said, your goals are your own, right? These are standard goals, but Raki's goal will be different from Nitin's goal, will be different from everyone else's goal, right? Miss Pramila's goal, Sugundan's goal, right? Everyone's goals are different, right? So don't copy from people who are next to you, right? Think for yourself, spend some time, lock yourself in a room one weekend and think about the goals that you truly have, right? Okay, so I don't know how many slides in we are, but I think it's time for a spreadsheet, right? So let's switch things up a bit, right? Now we have done all this. What have we done so far? We have defined our relationship with money. We have looked at budgeting. We have found goals. So now it comes time to actually see how the maths behind these goals work. So I'm going to switch screens. Let me know if you can see the screen, right? This should be a spreadsheet that should be visible to you now. Okay. I can see Raki nodding head. All right, so we have divided this spreadsheet into 2. Okay, I won't get into the maths behind it. Okay, I don't want to complicate things, but like I said, remember the Peter Lynch quote: all the maths that you need, you learned in 4th grade, right? So it's fairly simplistic. But all that this spreadsheet is there to help you do is kind of figure out how much your money can grow. Math teachers in the room can probably say, hey, I know this. Great. For all the other teachers who have never wanted to play around with numbers on an Excel before, hopefully this will help you all out, right? So let's say you want to do a monthly investment. Just put in the amount here. Sorry. Let's say you have 10,000 that you want to invest monthly. You want to get that money back in 3 years. And depending on where you're investing, these are the outcomes that you'll get in 3 years, right? Let's say you have a lump sum amount to invest, and let's say that is 2 lakhs. And you want it in 5 years, this is how much it will possibly grow to at these levels of return. The only thing that I would ask you to do when you're playing around with this is please don't change the rate of return. And I'll tell you why. Is because the moment you'll be like, Nitin, 12% is boring. I'm an aggressive investor. I'm going to invest in things that give me 15%. Suddenly your values can be overinflated to a large extent. So what you might end up doing is that you may not end up having enough money if the returns actually are 12%, right? So we have done this. We have set these numbers based on historic trends and projections. So try not to play around with that bit. And if you have a lump sum and you have a monthly amount to invest, well, we have got you sorted on that front as well, right? So the numbers will change here and you know how much your money can grow. Now, this is if you don't have any goals and you just want to invest and see how your money is growing. But let's say you have goals, right? Fine. The important thing in this spreadsheet is the 7% that you see over here. Because more often than not, most of us forget that inflation eats up into our purchasing power. Things that we want to buy today, if it costs a certain amount, 5 years from now, it's going to cost something completely different. So let's say you want to take a holiday to, I don't know, let's say what is going to cost us 5 lakhs today. Let's say a European holiday, and that's going to cost us 5 lakhs, but you want to take that 5 years from now. you're not going to need 5 lakhs in 5 years, right? You're going to need more than that. Plus, don't forget that the rupee also depreciates. So hard luck to all of us earning in Indian rupees, but that's just the way it is, right? Feel free to increase this number, right? I have no problem if you put a 10% rate of inflation, right? But probably don't go below 7%. So in this spreadsheet, inflation, the bare minimum, go higher, don't go lower. And then you know that, okay, I'm going to invest 10,000 rupees. I'm going to have to invest 9,000 rupees monthly if I'm going to get 10% return. So if it's going to be 8% returns that you're going to make on an annual basis, you're going to need to invest 9,500, right? And this gives you a sense of that. But the other question, this is fairly straightforward, right? I mean, you can always say, okay, if I'm getting my child married today, I know the cost of what a marriage is. I'll just input that amount. I know how much a house costs today. The most confusing aspect is always retirement. How much do you actually need for retirement, right? Who knows? Like, I want to retire 20 years from now. I have no freaking clue how much I'm going to need for retirement. So we're going to help you out on that front as well. Again, I won't get into the how this is calculated. We have kept the notes and stuff over here, so you can always look into that. But it's on the basis of your current expenses. So let us say your current expenses are, let's say, 60,000 rupees a month. Okay, which means 7,20,000 a year. Remember over here what I said, inflation eats away at everything and you see this going up. So just to give you perspective, let us say you want to, I don't know, retire 20 years from now. So we're going to take inflation. Okay, we're going to say 20 years from now. I'm just, you can ignore this FP formula, but essentially, if you're spending 7,20,000 a year today, 20 years from now, even if you don't upgrade your lifestyle, if you don't do anything, just because of inflation, if you're living the same lifestyle as you are today, 20 years from now, your yearly expenses will be 33 lakhs. I know some of these are scary numbers, okay? So ignore the scariness for the time being. This actually scares away a lot of people and they're like, shit, there is so much money that I have to invest to get to these goals. I don't want to think about it, right? That's one of the problems that we have. But ignore that for the time being, right? Which means that if you're retiring 20 years from now, you're going to need 8 crores based on this kind of lifestyle. I can see Raki's face crunching up. 8 crores, 35 lakhs in order to invest and live comfortably. We are assuming that you're going to live 30 years comfortably in retirement, comfortably, right? So if I just change this back and I'll show you how this will help you as well. So let me go back to 7,50,000. You see this 8 crores 70 lakh over here. You can just work backwards, reverse engineer it over here. So, you can say, okay, in today's value, how much it's going to be, you can play around with the numbers, right? So you can say, okay, do I need 2 crores? No, I'm still not at that figure. So I'm going to need, let's say, 2 crore 25 lakhs, sorry, 2 crore 25, which means, okay, now this is matching to this, all right. How much monthly investment do I need? 1,47,000. Now, let me add a disclaimer over here. This is just if your investment value remains constant year after year. Would we all get salary increments, hopefully, every year? Do we put that? Raki is saying no, but the goal is to get those salary increments, or if you're an entrepreneur and business owner, it's to try and get more income for ourselves, right? When you get that increment, you're not going to go and spend all that money. A part of it, we will push back into investments. So today, if you're investing 10,000 rupees a month, next year it should be 15,000 rupees a month, right? So the more we get our salary increments, hopefully the more of it goes into investment as well. So this number is not exactly what it looks like. It can be much lower because you're obviously increasing it as well, right? So keep that in mind. Anyway, let's move away from this. Now that we have set goals, we have calculated the amounts, let's move away from the scary element of financial planning, right? Let's screw the numbers now. So what I want you to do after you set your goals and you do all this, by the way, Raki, I don't see the time on my screen. So if in case you think I'm running to...
Sure, I'll give you a heads up.
Right?
Yep.
Right. So one thing that I would like you to do is set up this vision board thing, right? Visualize your goals. put it down on paper, print it out, stick it up on your fridge so that each time you go and open your fridge, you see it. Put it as a wallpaper on your phone, print it out, put it in your wallet. Make it as real to you as possible. Don't let your goals just be numbers and text on a spreadsheet. No, no, no. Create that visual image to it so that you know exactly what it is that you're dreaming about, what it is that you want to achieve. And this is something that I did for one of my colleagues a few years ago. So this is an actual vision board that we created. Now, I don't know how much she's gone and achieved or how much she's doing or whether she's actually printed it. But when you visualize things, it suddenly becomes very real and appealing to you, right? So once you've set up that vision board, let's get into what you do. Save or invest, right? Saving is just money lying in your bank account. It earns you that 3% rate of interest. Inflation is at 7%. So you're really not growing your money, are you? If you leave a lot of money in your savings bank account and you're earning a 3% interest on it, you're really not able to grow your money, right? So naturally, savings is not going to cut it out for us. We need to find ways to invest. Where do we invest? One option that a lot of people love is gold. And I'm not saying anything bad about gold, but gold does go through some of its ups and downs as well, right? So you have to figure out whether it's really the right investment for you. And I know that even if I tell you here on the call today, listen, folks, don't invest in gold. I know all of you will go and invest in gold at some point or the other because it's just part of our psyche, right? And that's perfectly okay. Gold has its place in our portfolio. So I'm not going to diss gold, right? But I do want to diss one aspect, which is your fixed deposits, right? Now, this is the go-to option for all of us, right? Most of us, the first thing that we do is put money in a fixed deposit. I know it seems like there's a lot of numbers on screen, so I'm going to simplify it. What happens when you invest in a fixed deposit? How do you pay tax on it? So let's say you invest 1 lakh rupees, you keep it in for 3 years, you earn 8% on it. At the end of 3 years, you will have 1,25,971, right? Well and good. How do you pay tax on this? You take that entire 25,971 rupees. If you're in the 30% tax bracket, you pay 30% tax on it. Which means instead of actually getting 8% return, your returns are actually 5.5%. Okay. What is the rate of inflation that I mentioned before, which the RBI is saying 7%. So we are all putting money in FDs, but our money isn't growing. What did we talk about at the very beginning? Working our money work hard for us, making our money work hard for us. This money is not working smart. This money isn't working hard either, right? What is the other option? So I know when I say mutual funds, a lot of people will be like, okay, I never invested in mutual funds before. Mutual funds are scary. Mutual funds are just not about investing in the stock markets. Okay, mutual funds are about, it can be an alternative to a fixed deposit as well. There are debt mutual funds, right? Now, the advantage with a debt mutual fund, without getting into the complexities of how these things are calculated, is that it allows you actually to adjust for the cost of inflation. So if you invest in a debt mutual fund and hold it for a period of 3 years, the government has said, listen, I don't know why they don't do it for a fixed deposit. It's really mind-boggling that they allow this for a fixed deposit, for a debt mutual fund, but they don't allow this for a fixed deposit. They say, we'll allow you to adjust for the cost of inflation. So if you invested 1 lakh and that's grown to 1,25,971, we know there's inflation. So we'll allow you to adjust for inflation. There's a calculation for it. And you'll only have to pay tax at 20%, not at 30% or your tax slab, at 20% flat on the value that's taken after adjusting for inflation, which in this case is 20% tax on 12,000 rupees, not on 25,971, which means after you deduct tax, you're at 7.27% in this calculation, right? So I know that just looking at this one slide is not going to change your mind and you skip an FD and immediately go to a debt mutual fund. So hopefully this is just a start, right? This session that we do, and hopefully you go back and think about some of these things, right? And the confusing bit is there are 4,000 freaking mutual funds in the country. So I know the pain of, saying there's too much in fixed deposit. There's no choice. If you're banking with State Bank of India, you just go to State Bank of India and get their fixed deposit. But with the mutual fund, there are 4,000 choices. how do you essentially navigate this world, especially if you're someone who's teaching their entire day, deciding their teaching plan for the next day, worried about the kids' future, that you're less worried about your future, right? It's a problem. And unfortunately, I don't have the perfect answer to this, other than you do need to find time to either find a wealth manager or a financial planner who will help you navigate this world. And just to be clear, even financial planners have other financial planners. Like I said, money is a very personal phenomenon. It's very subjective. So when I try to manage my money myself, sometimes I make really stupid decisions. So I do rely on one of my personal financial planning friends to help me out, right? So this could get complex, right? But if you are looking for something to help you start your journey, basically these are the categories of mutual funds that you should be looking at, right? Forget everything else. If you want to grow your money, you have your large cap mutual funds. If you want to be safe, there are corporate bond mutual funds. And if you want to park your money for emergencies, there are liquid mutual funds, right? So even if you ignore all other categories, think about these categories of mutual funds and go back and do a bit of reading, just so that you understand what these kinds of mutual funds are, right? Keep it simple. Nothing needs to be complex, right? But like I said, remember the problem is controlling emotions, right? We are constantly in this rush. We see the stock markets, right? So I'm going to use the stock market as a proxy over here. We see the Sensex, the stock market going up and down. We get greedy, we buy it when the stock market is here, and then something like the pandemic happens, and then boom, all our money vanishes. And at the bottom of the market, we are panicking, we are selling more, we are losing our money. And then we turn to our neighbors or our teachers in the staff room and we say, I lost money in the stock market, I'm never going to invest again. But then the stock market goes up again, and all you have done is lost money for yourself. What does this emotional turbulence lead to? Something called the behavioral gap. So we are trying our best. We are making these investments. The Sensex is giving you this much returns, but when we look at our portfolio, we actually only have this much returns. Why does this happen? Emotions. Think of it like you're at a toll booth. Okay, you're in lane 1, FASTag is going smooth. You're like, yes. You turn around to everyone in the car saying, see, I chose the right booth. And then lane 5 starts moving quicker and you're like, oh shit, I spoke too soon. You switch to lane 5. What happens when you switch to lane 5? Lane 4 starts moving quicker. What do? You switch to lane 4 and you lose out, right? This is what happens. You're stuck now again in lane 4. This is exactly what happens with our investments. We are in this constant itch. Which fund should I invest in? What should I do? Should I move? Should I do this? You're like that goalkeeper. Just stay still. Let money work for you. This is actual data from 2022 to 2002 to 2023. What you see on the left, the gray, is what investors make because of their stupid behavior. And if you didn't let these emotions, if you weren't an emotional fool, instead of getting 14% year on year, you would have had 19% year on year. If you just stayed on the same track and just let it continue growing slowly, right? So don't let emotions get the best of you. And it's very hard. Trust me. Irrespective of what I talk about today, practicing what I preach is also extremely hard, which is why I said I have someone else to look at the money that I have, right? So it is hard. So last few slides, I promise. What is the best way to control this need to act? Get an accountability partner. If you don't want to get a wealth manager, your best buddy in the staff room, we don't like to talk to our friends about money, right? We all like to keep things a secret. But like you have this teachers help teachers community, maybe use this to engage more in conversations, right? Find someone who really matches your wavelength, right? And let them be the accountability partner to make sure that you're not doing anything stupid. Learn about money management together. Don't do it alone, right? These are small things that can make a big difference. And the best way to really get rid of all this is automate things, right? Like I said, when we talked about budgeting, just move money into a separate bank account. Set up an automated investment, right? So if you have seen advertisements, you'll see this SIP, systematic investment plan, right? It might seem like a lot of jargon, but it's just a fancy word of saying it's a recurring deposit in a mutual fund. That's it. It's a monthly investment. You tell your bank, listen, please debit my account for this much money on this date. and invest it in this fund that I'm telling you to invest in. That's it. Every month, money hits your account, money goes from your account. Investments are made. And you know that from 2000 to 2017, for instance, lots of things have happened, right? We had the recession, we had elections in India, we had Brexit also, we had demonetization, right? A lot of things. But if you just kept quiet and just kept investing with your blinders on, right? Just in the Nifty 50, not some fancy fund, nothing, just in the stock market index. During this entire period, you would have had a return of 15%. But usually what happens, we see the market falling and then you'll call someone and be like, I'll pull out all my money. See that, right? That would have happened if you had pulled out all your money in the recession of 2008. Others, you'd be like, listen, the market is going up and up. I think I should stop investing. What if it falls? Again, you lose out, right? What you see over there, your return would have fallen to 12% if you just done that. So ignore all this noise. Ignore the media. Don't look at the newspaper. The newspaper will tell you one thing. Very honestly, what the newspaper tells you, most probably it'll be the exact opposite that will happen over the next 1 year. Okay. So ignore the media, put your blinders on, and just keep doing it. So there are two books that I would like to recommend to you, right? One is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Pick this up, give it to your students, give it to anyone you want. It's simplistic money management. And the second one is this book called Just Keep Buying. Right? It's exactly what I'm talking about over here, right? By Nick Maggiulli. He's a wealth manager, both of them in the US, right? These two books, forget The Intelligent Investor by Ben Graham, just do these two things, right? So, final thing, and I'm going to ask you to use a chat box for this. Let's take the example of two folks, Linda and John. Both of them start working at the age of 25, okay? Linda's like, listen, I'm a smart person. I'm going to save up right from my first paycheck. I'm going to save 10% of my income towards retirement. John's like, listen, Linda, I'm 25. You should have some fun. Who wants to think about retirement when you're 25? So John says, I'm going to wait for 5 years. I'll wait till I'm 30. At 30, I get serious. I'll start investing for my retirement when I'm 30. Linda's like, cool, you do that, John, but I'm going to start saving up. So they do this. Linda starts at 25, John starts at 30. Linda invests till the age of 60, which means 35 years. John does it for 30 years. And during this entire period, Linda has invested a grand total of 90 lakh rupees. And John has invested a grand total of 84 lakh rupees. Just 6 lakh rupees difference in 5 years. So I'm going to tell you now how much John has achieved, right? John looks at his portfolio, the value of this investment at the age of 60, and he's like, okay, Linda, I have 5 crores now. Linda's like, well and good. And Linda says, now guess how much I have. Now it's on you. Guess, put it up in chat. 6 lakh rupees difference in total investments, 5 years extra that Linda has invested. John has 5 crores. How much do you think Linda has? I'm going to wait for 30 seconds. Don't worry about the answers. I'm sure this is what you tell your students as well. He has said 7 crores. Okay. Priya is 20 crores. Pramila says 2 times. All right. Okay, twice, which means by 2 times, I'm assuming you're meaning double, right? So 2x, which means 10 crores. All right. Unfortunately, I can't throw chocolates at the screen, but so far, Priya is extremely positive. Priya thinks 6 lakhs has gone to 20, but not so much the concept of 7.5 crores, 6 lakh rupees, 5 years, 2.5 crores more, or 50% more. But you know why a lot of people give up early in their investment journey? They look at the first bit of this. Linda has invested for 15 years from the age of 25 to 40. It's still not hit 1 crore. And I know this looks like a straight line, but investing is usually never a straight line, right? It's never a J curve. It goes up, it will come down. I mean, it fluctuates, right? So when we see that happening, we give up. But this is what happens when you don't give up. This is what happens when you are like, remember the name of the janitor? Everyone's forgotten the janitor. Ronald Reed, right? This is what happens when you're like Ronald Reed and you just let your money grow. It's that simple, right? So this is it. It's simple. Find your relationship with money, invest for the long term. Don't put all your money in one basket. Make sure it's in multiple places. Find low cost ways to invest, right? Don't pay through your nose for something. Let's just sit back, put the blinders on and watch the magic of compounding, right? And there's one more thing. We haven't spoken about this, but in the midst of building wealth, all of us forget about insurance. Health insurance. It can wipe out your savings in a jiffy. If you don't have health insurance and you're hospitalized for some reason, it can wipe out whatever you've been building for. It can wipe it out in a jiffy. Life insurance. Let's say you're a double income household. You have goals that you've set together. Let's say kids' education, simplest example. You're saving up based on that double income. You need to have that double income in order to get to that goal, right? Something unfortunate happens to you or your partner. What happens to that goal? You can't let that goal vanish, right? So as much as we don't like talking about mortality, this is where life insurance comes in, to make sure that your family is protected in case something were to happen to you, right? And I think Rakhi will do a session on this, follow on as well, because
Yes.
sister companies Ditto Insurance, and this is what the folks at Ditto does. So we'll do a follow-up session on insurance. I'm sure Sugundan will coordinate and we'll figure out the right time. But yeah, this is all that I wanted to talk about today. And I'm sorry if I've overshot the time. I said I know I said I'll give 10 minutes for Q&A, but if you're happy to stay back for 10 minutes and shoot questions at me, I'm happy to answer them. But thank you so much for joining in. I hope it wasn't too boring on a Thursday evening. I'm sure you got better things to do now. But I hope you had fun. I hope I was able to convince you of some things and you've taken away at least a little bit from this session. So yeah, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely, Nitin, you're right in whatever you've spoken today. Because when you spoke about inflation and you spoke about salary hike, well, that's something that we teachers are unfortunate, to get that salary hike every year. But however, having said that, I think it's also about time that we teachers understand, how is it that we could actually, earn additional supplement income by actually monetizing our knowledge, because that's what we have loads of it, right? So there are ways and means in which that can be done and money can be compounded. So especially in today's day and age, with the, everything being digital, loads and loads of possibilities are there out in the market for a teacher to utilize their capability. So I'm going to leave this room open for questions. And if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand so that I can unmute you and you can shoot your questions. And also the spreadsheet, Nitin, if you're going to be getting the links, would you be able to share it here in the chat box so that we could play around with the numbers and understand what is the amount that we need to set aside for our retirement?
Okay, so I've stopped sharing the screen. Let me share one link with you. So I put a bunch of this up on the FinShots website. So this year actually, got it back again. Here you go. You can check this out. There are 8 resolutions in this. Go through it at your own pace. There are spreadsheet embedded, I think, in 3 of them, which includes budgeting, goal setting, and I think tax planning as well. So yeah, perfect. You can take a look at that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this link. And for those of you who would like to make a note of it, kindly copy the link that is shared in the comment section. And we'll also share it on our Facebook where we are going live. And we have Sugandhan who's raising his hand. Yes, please go ahead, Sugandhan. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I raised my hands to share these links. Yeah,
Okay,
that's it.
okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So Sugandhan was someone with whom I was coordinating for this session today. And it's thanks to his efforts that we have been able to roll out this session. I hope that all of you who have attended this session or who would be watching this session maybe in the coming days, you're going to be getting at least a few takeaways, as Nitin pointed out rightly, that this does require some amount of thinking in terms of understanding what is our relationship with money, what is the goal that we have for our own future, for our own retirement, what kind of living do we want for ourselves, what are the buckets that we want to invest in. So this definitely needs a lot of thinking, and it's not something that can happen in a jiffy. So do set aside time for doing this bit of homework that has been shared on the slides, especially the questions, because I remember that when I was starting my journey with Teachers Help Teachers, and it was very difficult for me to go out there and ask money from teachers, because I would always feel that why should we ask money from teachers? We are helping each other. But sooner did I realize that if we need to grow and we need to provide more value to, and we need to scale up what we are already doing with lots of other teachers, we need to have some kind of income coming in so that we have a team in place, we have a system in place. And that's where I realized that the block that I had in terms of asking money was, something that I had to work upon, because, there's no, you can do certain things on a goodwill basis, but it all depends on the length of it, right? How long you're going to be doing things on a goodwill basis, because ultimately if you need to grow and you need to provide that kind of quality, you need to have that kind of income in place. So I have worked on these questions in the past, and I know how important they are, and they really they can really get a breakthrough. So you can really get a breakthrough when you are attempting these questions. So my sincere request, please do attempt these questions. Find out where you want to go, what do you want to do, and yeah, that's about it.
I think there's one question from Ms. Pramila, which I'll try and address. This is
Sure.
like a question that you get every time, right? How do you find a wealth manager? It's difficult because there's no central database, and have conversations with multiple people. And I mean this with regard to two aspects. One, like I said about accountability partner, I'm sure there's someone in the circle who uses a wealth manager, right? Because we don't talk about money, we don't know if someone uses a wealth manager. So have those conversations with people, just put it out there saying that, hey, I'm looking for someone to guide me in money management, and people will open up. I would say go through references, because it's very clear if someone's had a good experience, you could probably have a good experience. And even if that's not the case, have multiple conversations with that wealth manager. If that wealth manager right from the get-go is trying to sell you things, run away in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure that the person actually takes time to understand who you are as a person, what your actual goals and needs are, rather than pushing things onto you. Right. So understand what their incentives are. Right. That's one thing to keep in mind when you start speaking to people. But I would say just try and get it through references. That's how you find a chartered accountant also usually for tax filing. The first time I chose a random chartered accountant for myself, I knew more than her. So then I went through references. So yeah, probably speak to people. I know it doesn't sound like perfect advice, but that's helped people in the past. So.
Right. And how about you guys in terms of advisors? So how does FinShot play a role out here?
So FinShot does not do wealth advisory. We do the Ditto insurance with our insurance wing. We do just insurance advisory. A lot of people are all together. Management and advisory as well for people, just for family and friends, unfortunately. Yeah, Ditto can help you with the insurance needs, but not complete. financial planning.
All right, got it, got it. Any other question, teachers, before we close the room and end our webinar today on personal financial management? Any questions, any queries? Anybody would like to ask anything, please
Unmute themselves.
unmute, yes.
By the way, I would have thought that teachers would be more gung-ho about asking questions. Huh?
I think it's something that we're sailing into. We need to digest this information in order to get back with certain questions. So, yep. You can
I'll drop in, my email. I think Subundan can drop in his email
Yes.
as well. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.
So I have a question, Rakhi.
Yes, sure, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you were talking about saving for retirement, and I have already reached that stage. I have a problem in the sense that when I was a child, I'm carrying the baggage. When I was a child, money was hard to come by. So I have issues in investing, and there is a fear. So how does one ensure that I get over this, and also try to ensure that I don't depend on anybody else as far as financial matters are concerned, and physically, well, it's up to him
Or her.
or her. Yeah. So how does one do that?
It's tough, and I know it's tough because I've seen my dad go through it. My dad's had zero investments in mutual funds through his entire life. He's invested in gold, real estate, fixed deposits. And even today, he primarily does the same thing, right? Luckily, he had me to kind of nudge him to, so each time what I used to say was, I'm like, Dad, transfer money to my account. And, I need money for something and I'll invest that money in his name, because it's tough to make him do it, right? Because then he'll look at the portfolio and he'll freak out. So I do it on his behalf, right? So the only thing that I can say based on my experience in dealing with retirees is take baby steps. Retirement also is a journey, right? You're going to have to, I think one of the problems that most people face in retirement is that because of this fear that what if I run out of money, eventually what happens is that they I didn't hear you.
I before.
Wonderful.
Yes,
So you're living
sir.
retirement fairly well, right? But in order to live better or live life the way that you want to, you also need to grow that money, right? Like you said.
Correct.
So take these baby steps, right? Find someone whom you can talk to. Find out if they've been investing in mutual funds. If you're retired, you have some time on your hands, I'm assuming, to do some reading as well. Maybe take up a personal finance course. There's plenty out there, right? Maybe do that. And I know you said you want to engage with a wealth manager, so hopefully they will help you, right? And put you on the right track. But if you speak to a wealth manager and they try and push you too much in zones that you're not comfortable in, again, look for someone else, right? You need to take those baby steps. You can't just go all in one day investing in fixed deposits, next day buying stocks in, some random small company. That's not what happens.
It did happen. Some people came and said, oh, these stocks are no good and this and that. And finally, we realized we got a nice, good bonus shares. So we didn't sell them, we hung on to them. It worked fine.
Yeah, I mean, sure. In wealth managers are also fallible. They could make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to find someone who makes fewer mistakes. And like I said, right, it's to do with a reference. If someone has a good experience with a wealth manager, it could be a start. But take baby steps. Let's say if you know clearly, okay, I'm going to try and take baby steps and take a personal finance course, number one, invest 5,000 rupees a month in this, see what's going to happen. You learn by doing, right? Not by just reading books. So don't be overzealous, go small, and then finally 2 years from now, maybe you can go big. Yeah, I don't know if that answers, but again, some of these are very subjective, hard to put a number or exact thing to do.
And I expected somebody or the other would ask. Nobody did. So I said, let me just go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Ms. Aarti, for joining in. Yeah.
Yes, we do have someone joining us now, but
I mean,
unfortunately
sorry
we
for
are done.
leaving. Sorry,
Yeah.
I meant leaving.
We are done with the session, and we have recorded it. We'll be putting up on YouTube, and it's also broadcasted live on our Facebook. So people who have missed can watch it on YouTube and Facebook group. And we also have a session tomorrow coming up, the community meet, which is our monthly affair, which is a circle which we meet every month with educators, and we discuss a topic. A theme is something that is taken up by the lead mentors, and the discussion goes around the theme with interaction. So make sure that you're going to be attending tomorrow's session as well. It's going to be happening at 7 p.m. tomorrow, and the details of which have been shared in our WhatsApp group as well. Yeah, we have people joining us now. So great, Nitin, thank you so much. And I'm sure that this awareness session is indeed going to sow the seed for better personal finance management for teachers. And we have your email ID, so we'll definitely reach out to you as and when we're stuck, and if we need help, and if you could also suggest a few financial advisors, maybe that would also help the community. So I leave that decision to you. And, of course, it's finance. So people are very, it's always a topic, where there's more fear. So maybe that's why these things are not openly discussed. But I think it's about time we start discussing in our staff rooms, with our peers, with our colleagues, that how is it that you're managing money, and how is it that I can learn from you. So thank you so much for today's session, and thank you to all the teachers who joined us, and who really want to up their level in terms of managing their income. So thank you, and see you tomorrow for a community meetup session happening at 7 p.m. And have a nice weekend. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks, Nitin. Thanks, Lucky.
Thank
See
you. Thank you, Pramila ma'am. See you.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.